Oh, good morning, everybody. We're going to do it to come on. I just posted Acts 28. Now, I want the whole world to know that that biblical post, meaning talking about God, so I don't review those posts, but those are teachings. I did this last year. And to verify what you saw on my videos yesterday, that post is still deemed abusive. Meaning, I have all those websites, and when I share from one of those websites to Facebook, it says this post is deemed to be abusive or hate speech. Why do they do that, John? Because somewhere, somehow, whoever in this world of manipulation with Google and everything, somehow people have, one of my other side, people have said, let's go after this small-time blogger out of Texas. Because it's still today. I verified it because I just shared from all the websites, all those links. You know, as a news watcher, I don't even have to go back and check because I'm a news reader and a news watcher. I could title this, Did Mr. Mueller's prosecutors in the Paul Manafort case publicly threaten to kill reporters? You say, John, now you're throwing out. Listen to this. As they were trying Paul Manafort in his first case, which happened in the last few weeks, those who watch news, this is the Mueller team going after Paul Manafort, and they had the first trial. There's another one coming up. They found him guilty of so many, 8 counts out of 15, something like that. And it was interesting because one of those prosecutors was in the hallway. Now, this is reported on mainstream media. And in the hallway, they asked some type of question. And the prosecutor glibly said, if I tell you, I would have to kill you. The Mueller prosecutor said to the reporters in the hallway of that case, now we understand that a statement like that is obviously in jest. But if we use the same standard that that team has used, meaning Michael Flynn has been pled guilty to lying to Mr. Mueller and the FBI. Michael Flynn, a former Trump person, a man of integrity and a military man, when he was interviewed by the Mueller team, he gave some answers, and it was revealed later on that the answers that he gave to the FBI, they thought he just kind of made a mistake. They actually said in the texts and all that were revealed that Mike Flynn didn't lie. He was like we caught him in something, but he wasn't intentionally lying. Mr. Giuliani, I grew up in that era of our country. He made a statement that was not, he said, sometimes a lie is not a lie or a truth is not a truth. What he meant to say was, in some of these cases, particularly with Mueller, because these people are unethical, they showed this in a history of their past, that you can actually go in and have an interview with these people like Michael Flynn did, and they can say, yeah, he was honest, but let's go and get him anyway. That's what they did. So what I would ask is, how come the media reported that one of the Mueller prosecutors, he has a foreign name, and he thought it was funny, even though the judge in the Paul Manafort case, the FBI and everybody else realized they were just going after Manafort to make him sing or compose, meaning we really would not go after Mr. Manafort or any of the Trump people, but we're going to do it anyway. So that was basically unjust. Now let's mention Mr. Rod Rosenstein. This continues with yesterday's little talks, which somebody on Google, somebody in the CNN world, One of my sites, out of all those sites, that's why I got so many, I wrote a few notes about that. It'll go up on the Sunday Post. It's drastically kind of almost stopped. Now, it's meaning the way the world and the media work, what you can do is constantly, like, go to a site. You have so many bots that hit the site and shut the site down. They did that with the InfoWars and Alex Jones. They tried to stop one of his sites. So they've been doing that to one of my sites. But that's why I get so many. Now, what is Mr. Rod Rosenstein, who is one of the chief prosecutors right now in the Mueller probe today, what did he do that can be deemed criminal? That can be deemed, not only should that man be removed from this prosecution of Trump or investigation of Trump, but even arrested. Yesterday I told you, see, the media not only does not tell you this, they cover this up. Yesterday I explained that the FBI was using a source by the name of Michael Steele, who is not a U.S. citizen. He's a former British spy. And the FBI, that man was working for Hillary Clinton and the Democrats and had illegal contacts with the Russians. Mr. Michael Steele had illegal collusion with the Russians because he was collecting information. They were paying for that information to the Russians on Donald Trump. A lot of that information was either false or unverified. Now, he was also being paid by the FBI. But the crime that Mr. Steele committed, besides not registering as a lobbyist, because he was not a U.S. citizen and he had to register as a non-U.S. citizen, that he was having contacts with Russians. And to be honest with you, it was collusion with the Russians to disrupt the democratic process. That's what that was. It's an amazing thing, isn't it? So Michael Steele, working and on the payroll also of the FBI, besides the Democratic Party that was paying him, he was illegally leaking insider investigative information to the media. Now, some within the FBI were doing the same thing. That came out as well. The FBI, it came out in all these recent hearings that they would leak news stories themselves to the media and then claim that the story in the media was evidence to get like some of these warrants and all, which is highly unethical. Eventually, Michael Steele, this non-U.S. citizen, who said, Trump, it's my heart's desire that Trump does not become president, and then in the whole group of guys, and if he does, you're not even a citizen. You are a foreigner that attempted to disrupt, and even at this stage, the information you gave to this group. So finally, what did the FBI do, John? They stopped using Michael Steele. He's off the payroll. We won't use him anymore. That's what we thought. Behind the scenes, he continued to pass off information that his wife, working Nellie, or the wife of Bruce Orr, was continuing to work for a political firm called Fusion GPS, continuing to get information with these illegal contacts with Russians. And the husband, Bruce Orr, was a back channel to continue to pass this information to Mr. Rod Rosenstein. So now we know that one of the men working today diligently to find out if Trump had any illegal contacts with the Russians, Mr. Rod Rosenstein was using illegally collected information because Michael Steele was not registered as a foreign lobbyist and continued to use it, as far as we know up until this present hour, to see if Trump illegally colluded with the Russians. So Rosenstein has been shown now to be unethical, besides the fact that I just showed you that one of the prosecutors glibly said in the hallway of the Manafort case, I could tell you, they asked him a question, but then I would have to kill you. Now, I understand that these men would say, well, we discern statements that are, non-intentional. You didn't do that with Mr. Flynn. You knew he did not intentionally lie, but you said it's such a high crime to lie to us. I gave you the history of Mr. Mueller's unethical behavior in the Anthrax case and in the Boston Whitey Bulger case, which is documented, which meant when this man, Mueller, in his history, had a team working with him, he has never had the money, the resources, as he has now. Because you, the taxpayer, are paying all of this money to this group of men, unlimited resources, to do what they've done in the past. If I took one of my friends who was an addict, and then he used meth, he used heroin, whatever, okay, and we knew, oh, that's a problem. Then he gets away from the area, then comes back, has that same addiction again. And then lo and behold, 5 years later, he comes back, but this time he's got unlimited money. What do you think that addict would do? He would go down the trail of unethical behavior. Now, Mr. Mueller's history, and even some of the people that have been in the FBI this last year, who have been fired, who are being investigated for criminal activity, the multitude of them that have resigned, got fired, all the guys begging for money on GoFundMe. By the way, right now, those of you who gave to those GoFundMe accounts, it's questionable because there was a story in the media that a homeless man, this came out yesterday, today maybe, a homeless man helped some couple, maybe in California, helped them, they broke down on the road. The couple opened up a GoFundMe account for the homeless man. Now they raised almost $500,000. They bought the homeless man like a trailer. They gave him less than half the money. And then the homeless man said, what did you do with all the GoFundMe money? And the couple then said, well, he couldn't be trusted because he was a drug addict. And now he got a lawyer, and a judge is now going after the people who started the GoFundMe account. And those people are going to have to give an account. I believe that those who have contributed to these guys are going to the McCabe's and everybody else. So Mr. Rosenstein has used the information that we now know should not have been, he should have not had contacts. What did Mr. Mueller do with the history, the example of the drug addict? Mr. Mueller showed himself to be unethical and a bad prosecutor and investigator. A bad, someone whose job in the Anthrax case, in the Whitey Bulger Boston case, he showed himself that he is at the bottom of the scale for ethical behavior. I won't cover the Anthrax case and the Whitey Bulger. Whitey Bulger case, Mr. Mueller was in charge of the FBI out of that office, and there were corruption, criminal things that they allowed Mr. Bulger to get away with. Now you bring Mr. Mueller back after all these years. You give him unlimited funds. It's like the addict. Will he now be ethical? No, he won't. No, he won't. And you judge this. That man, Mueller, and his team are prosecuting people for lying to them. And it's been exposed that their own people on the inside have done worse than lying. Their own people on the inside have continued to collude with sources, Mike Steele, who had illegal collusion with the Russians, and passed that off to Rod Rosenstein, And he was still doing it until it got exposed within the last few weeks. Now, these men are not in a righteous pursuit of seeing what was true in this whole investigation. They have now become like addicts who you gave an unlimited amount of resources to. When I read the statement from that man who has a foreign name, I'm sure he's a U.S. citizen, forget the name, some type of maybe an Arab name, and I'm not anti-Arab or Muslim. And he was having, we got Manafort, we're going to put him away for 200 and something years, and the reporters asked him a question. He said, I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you. I deem that. If I was one of the reporters, now you, Mr. Prosecutor, did you just publicly say you were going to murder me? Oh, I was kidding. So you don't give an account for the words that you speak? Would you hold Flynn accountable? Because, well, one of the highest crimes is lying. I find it very interesting that what Mr. Mueller has done, the other shady thing, is he has taken anything that he could find, whether it's with Mr. Cohen, the Trump organization, and what he has done is he's passed that off to the Southern District of New York prosecutors, which happens to be New York City area, okay? And what they do now is they begin looking at Ivanka Trump, her dealings, Don Jr., his dealings, and then they begin going through anything. And then in any way, if they can ever interview any of them, and they lie, even accidentally, that's what Giuliani was saying. They could ask you, what time, Ivanka, did you get up today? I think it was about 7. Now, I'm exaggerating somewhat. But then they could have another person go into, no, Ivanka got up at 8. That can be deemed a crime. That's why Giuliani said what he said. So what we would ask today is, why is the Mueller team allowing Mr. Rod Rosenstein to be one of the top prosecutors who has now been shown that he continued to receive information that was illegally obtained by Michael Steele with the Russians? And how could these people today, and the only reason they get away with it is because of what I showed you about the media. And these videos, where I'm just expressing to you aspects that the media does not tell you, they're deemed now hate speech. They're deemed now. Mr. Mueller could send a team. One time I was sitting at my house many years ago, and I told this story before. And it was part of an FBI group. The task force, FBI, it said FBI, I believe. It wasn't local cops. I bought this house from people from people that own the house, but there was a family that rented here. They seemed like a nice family. They were called the Parkers. And so when we came and looked at it, of course there were renters in here. So, but they were nice. And I think they wanted to keep renting. But the house was on the market. And the owner, I believe, moved to Florida. Some guy. Wilmot was the name. The owner, I remember that. So the people that did rent here moved next door and rented the house next door. They've been gone for many years. Now, I don't know what the scenario was. But I got home from the fire department one day with my fire department shirt on. And I think I had it on at the time. And the doorbell rang. And it was about 6 FBI squad, guns ablazing. Look, they were ready to... And I answered the door. This is 20 years ago. I said, can I help you? What's your name? Me? You got guns at my door? It's Corpus Christi. And it's John Schreller. We're looking for Richard Parker. I said, no, I'm not sure if they still rented next door at that time. They obviously moved out of this house. I said, no. He used to rent here. I said, he don't live here. And then one of the Mueller guys just looks at me. And what are you doing home now? What am I doing home now? Who are you to even come to my door with your guns? No, we are out. We are the FBI. You lie to us, we deem that a crime. What about the case? I read all these criminal cases, police cases. There was a man somewhere up in maybe Tennessee. Remember this one. And the police were looking for like a cousin of his. You know, had a warrant or whatever. I remember this one. And they went and knocked on the door at the trailer. That's why it made it to national news. So, and the man was in his 30s, married, and had a couple of kids. So he opened the door. These are the Mueller people. These are the just ones. And the man opened the door and said, yes. And they were there. The feds or whatever law enforcement is. So we're looking for, and it was like a cousin for a pot bingo. They had a warrant. Now the cousin, person they were looking, was actually not in the home. And these officers of the law, after they knocked, and the man stood at the door, he obviously knew his rights. He said, no, he's not here. And they said, we want to come in and search your trailer. And he said, do you have a warrant? No. Now, this was his mistake that warranted his execution by those criminals. He slammed the door and got them mad. So what did they do? They kicked the door down, pulled him out of the house, and shot him about 6 times in the back and murdered him in front of his wife and kids. And that was deemed, I do not know the final outcome of those executioners and criminals. But those are the people that say, if you ever lie to us, even mistakenly, we deem that such a high crime. And I would ask, how did Mueller escape his anthrax debacle, which I covered the anthrax case? The corruption out of the Boston FBI office, where John Connolly even went to prison over that, and the Whitey Bulger. And now we are supposed to accept today that even that group now, and Mr. Rod Rosenstein, who was receiving this illegal information from Mike Steele and the dossier, and one of the judges working in that cabal, Bruce Orr, and his wife was making money, working for a political firm, and all of that was deemed, we're men of integrity and righteousness. But let's see Ivanka, let's see Don Jr., if we could find maybe something in your taxes, and then if we get you in court like Mr. Manafort, and we're in the hallway, and a reporter asks us, hey, can you tell us something? And you're so jovial. I can tell you, but I'd have to kill you. Like a joke? And you're putting that man in prison for 235 years, but you're just enjoying yourself with an unlimited amount of cash. Mr. Mueller should have wrapped up this thing by now, because we're a couple of months from the midterm elections, and they have particular criteria that you don't bring the criminal cases in this manner so close. So now they're thinking it's going to come after. And then they still want to interview Mr. Trump. If Trump said anything, even innocently, they could say, now we're going to do the indictment or the subpoena or whatever it is. They've shown themselves to be criminal.